The galaxy was never silent, but in some corners, whispers carried farther than the sound of cannons. Across distant stars, traders and wanderers spoke of a thing, a shadow in the dark, a ship so massive that no one dared come close. They called it many names: the floating terror, the steel beast, the Colossus. Aliens told each other stories in low voices, stories of fleets that vanished without a trace, of battles that ended before they even began. No one ever claimed to see the Colossus directly, only flashes of light in the void, only broken transmissions before silence took everything. For centuries, the galaxy believed humans were weak. They were the small ones, late to the stars, fragile in body and desperate in survival. Other species laughed at them, used them, sometimes even enslaved them, but something changed, and the galaxy did not notice until it was too late. From the ashes of their long struggle, humanity built one ship, a ship greater than anything the stars had ever known. Not a fleet, not an army, but one colossal titan, a moving fortress, and with that ship, they returned to the galaxy not as prey but as a force now. The Colossus drifted through the dark like a ghost, feared by many, unseen by most. On a lonely night, near the edge of a quiet star system, an alien scout ship caught a signal. The signal was slow, heavy, like the heartbeat of a giant. The crew of the scout froze as the scanners lit up. Something enormous was moving just beyond the shadow of the star. The ship's captain whispered to himself, "No, it cannot be real." But it was. From the darkness, a shape emerged. First only a glimmer, then a long black line. Then towers of steel rising like mountains. Engines glowed with a deep burning fire. Not fast, not weak, but steady, it was the Colossus. The scout crew stared in silence. The ship stretched for miles, larger than some moons. Its surface bristled with weapons, cannons the size of cities, launch bays big enough to swallow battleships whole. Yet it moved with the calm of something alive, like a predator in no hurry to chase. The galaxy had seen large ships before, but this was different. This was not a warship, it was a statement. It said one thing clearly: humanity would never be weak again. The aliens inside the scout ship argued in panic. Some wanted to flee at once, others wanted to watch. Their voices shook as they remembered the stories. One alien muttered, "If this is the Colossus, we should not even be alive to see it." Still, the signal continued, a slow pulse, a rhythm. It was not a weapon firing, it was a message. But no one could understand it. The Colossus did not turn toward the scout. It did not aim its weapons. It only passed through the system like a silent storm. The scout ship recorded everything, sending desperate signals back to its empire. And soon the whole galaxy would know. The legend was not a story, the Colossus was real. In the capital of a distant alien empire, leaders gathered in fear. Their maps showed the path of the ship. They argued, was it coming for them, or was it drifting without care? No answer brought comfort. Every empire in the stars had once mocked humanity. Now every empire held its breath. But the mystery remained. Why had humans built such a thing? Was it for conquest, to rule the stars? Or was it only for defense, a shield too terrifying to challenge? No one knew, and perhaps that was the greatest terror of all. Back on the scout ship, the crew stared at the recordings again and again. The ship's captain whispered, "We are ants looking at a mountain. If humanity has built this, then war will never be the same. Peace will never be the same." The Colossus continued its slow drift. Its engines left trails like glowing scars across the black sky. Every alien eye that watched it, every sensor that tracked it, every whisper that spoke its name, all felt the same truth. The galaxy had changed. For the first time, humanity was no longer a question mark in the stars. They were a warning, a challenge, a power too great to ignore. And somewhere inside the Colossus, humans watched too. Calm, patient, waiting for the galaxy to speak first. The hook was set, the legend alive, the Colossus was here, and first contact had just begun. The Colossus revealed. The alien scout ship had already sent its desperate signal. Across the stars, empires and kingdoms received the message. Some dismissed it as fear, some called it a trick, but deep inside, they all wanted to know the truth. Was the Colossus real or just a tale to frighten fools? The answer came too quickly, because the Colossus did not hide. It emerged, slow and heavy, into the heart of an abandoned system, a system where broken moons circled a dying star, the perfect graveyard for secrets to be revealed. For centuries, the galaxy had built great ships, war barges, dreadnoughts, even floating stations. But when the Colossus appeared in full view, all comparisons shattered. It was not a ship, it was a moving continent. Its shadow swallowed light. Its surface looked endless. With steel mountains and weapon towers rising like black teeth, sensors struggled to measure its size. Some called it 5 miles long, others claimed 10. But numbers did not matter anymore. The truth was simple. The Colossus was the largest single creation ever to sail the void. Alien eyes locked on it. Spies sent images across hidden channels. Traders sold whispers for fortunes, and every word spread fear. The humans built this, they said, and if one exists, maybe more are waiting. The ship itself seemed alive. Panels shifted like breathing lungs. Engines glowed in steady rhythm. Lights blinked across its hull like watchful eyes from a distance. It did not look like a machine. It looked like a beast pretending to sleep. The galaxy wanted answers, so one empire dared to send a probe. A small drone raced close, snapping images, scanning the steel giant. It captured endless walls of armor, hangars larger than cities. It recorded cannons so large they looked like valleys carved into metal. Then, without warning, the probe's signal died. No explosion, no flash, only silence. The Colossus had seen it, and the Colossus had ignored it. Even that silence was terrifying, because it showed control, not chaos. Inside the alien halls of power, leaders argued. Some demanded war before humanity grew stronger. Others whispered caution, saying no fleet could match this size. One wise elder said, "This ship is not just a weapon, it is a message. And the message is simple. Humanity has no fear of us anymore." While empires debated, the Colossus revealed more. From its side, a bay opened. Out came smaller ships, escorts, scouts, hunters. But even these smaller ships dwarfed the warships of many empires. They looked like birds flying from a mountain's cliff, each one strong enough to fight a battle. Yet each one was only a piece of the Colossus. The galaxy now understood something dangerous. This was not just a ship of war. It was a ship of strategy, a mobile fortress, a carrier, a weapon platform, a shield, all in one body. Still, the question burned brighter than fear. Why did the humans build it? Was it because they sought conquest, to finally rise as rulers of the galaxy? Or was it because they remembered their past? A past where they were prey, hunted, mocked, enslaved, and they swore never again. No one could answer. Not yet, but even without answers. The Colossus spoke not in words, but in its silent presence. It said, "We are here, we are strong, and you cannot ignore us anymore." In a border system, far from the core of any empire, merchants saw the Colossus pass by. Their ships trembled in its wake. They watched in awe as its hull reflected the starlight. One merchant whispered, "It is not a ship, it is a floating terror." The humans have built a god of steel. The Colossus did not fire, did not attack. It only drifted forward, but that was enough to shake the galaxy. Because when something so massive can move so calmly, everyone wonders what will happen if it finally chooses to strike. Back on Earth, inside command halls buried deep under stone and steel, human leaders watched the reactions unfold. They read alien broadcasts, intercepted secret messages, and they smiled. Because the Colossus had already done what it was built for. It had made the galaxy afraid. It had changed the balance without firing a single shot. In the quiet of space, the Colossus moved again. Its engines thundered like distant storms. The void itself seemed smaller in its presence, and everywhere, across every world, across every empire, the same word spread. The Colossus is real. And if the Colossus was real, then humanity was no longer the weak child of the stars. They were something new, something to be respected or feared. The galaxy would have to decide which, but time was running out. Because first contact had already begun, and the Colossus had only just revealed itself. First contact begins. The galaxy had seen the Colossus with its own eyes. Rumors were gone, lies were broken. Now there was only truth. Humanity had built the largest ship in the stars, and everyone wanted to know, what did the humans want? The first move did not come from Earth. It came from the galaxy. An alien council, nervous and divided, chose to send envoys. Small ships, painted in colors of peace, crossed the void. Their mission was simple: speak to humanity before war spoke first. The Colossus floated in the shadow of a dead star. Its hull reflected no warmth, no life. It looked like a frozen god waiting for prayer. The envoy ships approached slowly. Their lights blinked soft and careful. Their signals spoke of peace, of talk, of welcome inside one envoy. A reptilian commander hissed to his crew, "Do not anger them, remember? This ship could end us in a single thought." Fear was in every word, but still they moved closer. At last a voice answered. It did not roar. It did not threaten. It came calm, deep and steady. "This is the Colossus, flagship of humanity. State your purpose." The envoys froze in shock. The voice was not mechanical, not cold. It was human, simple, strong, unshaken. The aliens expected arrogance, maybe cruelty, but the voice carried something else. It carried control. The envoys sent their message. "We seek understanding. We wish to know why you built such a thing." Their words stumbled. For how could anyone call the Colossus just a ship? A pause followed. Silence stretched long, heavy. Even stars seemed to wait. Then the human voice answered. "Humanity remembers its past. We remember being weak. We remember being prey. The Colossus was built to make sure that never happens again." The aliens looked at each other. They had expected war cries, conquest, but instead they heard memory, pain, defiance. It was not the voice of a conqueror. It was the voice of a survivor. Still, not all believed. One envoy whispered on a private channel, "This is only a trick. No one builds such a monster for defense alone." And in distant empires, leaders agreed. Fear turned to suspicion. Suspicion turned to anger. For many, the Colossus was too much. Its size an insult, its silence a threat. They could not accept that such power existed outside their control. And so whispers of peace clashed with whispers of war. But on that first day, no battle came, only words. The humans spoke with care. "We do not seek conquest, but we will not kneel if peace is offered. We will return it. If war is chosen, we will end it." The envoys left in silence, their ships small shadows beside the Colossus, and when they returned to their empires, each one told a different story. Some said, "The humans are honest. They want only safety," others said. "They hide their true nature. That ship is a sword waiting to strike." The galaxy was divided, but one truth united all. No one could ignore the humans anymore. Back inside the Colossus, human commanders studied every word, every signal. They knew the aliens were afraid. They knew trust would not come easily. But they also knew something greater. Fear was its own kind of shield. One young officer asked her captain, "Do you think they believe us?" The captain looked at the stars through the great viewing wall. "They don't have to believe us, they only have to remember us." Outside, the Colossus moved again. Slow, steady, unchallenged. Every step through the void felt like thunder to watching eyes. And with every move, the galaxy wondered the same question. Was this truly the dawn of peace? Or was this the quiet before the storm? Because while the first contact had been calm, whispers spread of others who were not so patient. A proud empire angered by fear, an old rival of humanity. Desperate to test their strength, they were already preparing fleets, already planning their strike. And though the Colossus remained silent, though humanity spoke only of peace and survival, the galaxy's oldest truth had not changed. Power invites challenge. And the Colossus was the greatest power of them all. The first contact was made, words had been exchanged, but the story was far from over. Because somewhere in the dark, a fleet was already on its way, ready to test the floating terror, ready to test humanity itself. The alien test, the first contact, had ended without blood. Words were exchanged, promises made, but words alone could not calm the galaxy. Not when a giant like the Colossus drifted through the void. Not when fear spread faster than light. Some empires whispered of peace, others whispered of caution. But one empire did not whisper at all. They shouted, they declared the Colossus a lie. They claimed humanity was bluffing, and they swore to prove it. The empire was old, proud, violent, hungry for dominance. Its fleets had crushed 100 weaker races. Its flag hung over half a dozen conquered worlds. To them, humans were still newcomers, a people with no right to wield such terror. And so they planned a test, not an attack in name, no. They were too cunning for that. They called it a demonstration, a chance to show the galaxy that the Colossus was nothing but hollow steel, that humanity's terror could be broken. They gathered a fleet, 50 warships, small compared to the Colossus but deadly in numbers, each armed with plasma cannons, railguns, and swarms of drones. Together they could level a world together. They believed they could shake even the floating terror. The fleet moved in silence. Hidden by shadows, their admirals boasted, "One ship cannot stand against an empire. Not even a ship this large." Their crews sharpened their courage with laughter, but deep inside even they felt unease. Because the Colossus was not just steel, it was a legend, and legends weighed heavily on the mind. At the edge of a nameless system, the Colossus drifted, silent as always. Its black hull gleamed faintly against the dying star. The test was about to begin. The alien fleet dropped from faster-than-light travel. Engines roared, weapons armed. 50 warships surrounded the giant like wolves around a titan. They sent a signal. "Humans, prove your words. Prove that you are more than shadows." Inside the Colossus, alarms echoed. Human commanders watched calmly. Their voices did not rise, their hands did not shake. They had expected this moment. They had built the ship for this very test. The alien fleet made the first move. Missiles streaked across the void. Beams of plasma tore through the dark. Dozens of explosions lit the black sky, and for a moment it seemed the Colossus was gone. Lost in fire, swallowed by fury, but then the fire cleared, and the Colossus still stood. Untouched, its shields glowed faint. Its armor shone like unbroken stone. The alien crews gasped. Their missiles had been dust against a mountain. Then came the answer. The Colossus did not roar in anger. It did not chase, it simply moved. One cannon opened fire, a single beam wide as a city. It crossed the void in a breath, and one alien warship vanished. Not shattered, not broken, gone. Erased in white light, the fleet panicked. Orders clashed, voices shouted, more ships fired. The Colossus turned its weapons slowly. Each movement deliberate, each strike final. Another warship fell, then another. Explosions painted the void, but the Colossus never rushed. It never wasted. It killed with patience. On alien channels, fear spread like fire. This is no ship. This is a god. Our weapons do nothing, our numbers mean nothing. Run. Run before we are all gone, but running was too late. The Colossus moved forward. Its escorts swarmed like hunting birds. Smaller than the Titan, but larger than any alien cruiser. They tore through drones, shattered missile barrages. The fleet's proud formation broke. And once it broke, it was over in less than 1 hour. 50 warships became floating wrecks, some burning, some silent, only a handful limped away. Their crews broken, their pride shattered. Yet the Colossus did not chase, it did not finish the hunt. It let them flee, it let them live, because destruction was not its message. Its message was control, restraint, power with patience. The galaxy watched. Every signal, every image spread like wildfire. And the lesson was clear. The Colossus was not a bluff. Humanity was not a shadow, they were a storm. And when challenged, that storm would answer. Back in the alien empire, admirals fell silent, their leaders raged. But even in their rage, they felt the truth like chains around their throats. They had tested humanity and they had lost on Earth. The news reached human commanders. Reports of victory filled the screens. Yet no cheer rose, no celebration thundered. The captain of the Colossus only said, "This was expected. This was only the beginning. Now the galaxy knows." The Colossus drifted once more into silence, its guns quiet, its engines steady. But the legend grew louder, the terror grew sharper, and the galaxy whispered one phrase again and again: "The floating terror cannot be broken." The test was over, but the war of fear had only begun. The floating terror unleashed. The galaxy could not look away. Every empire, every council, every wandering ship had seen the test. 50 warships had fallen in less than an hour. And the Colossus had barely moved. It had not fought like a fleet. It had fought like a force of nature. To many the message was enough, but for others, it was only the beginning, they whispered. If this ship can crush fleets so easily, what else can it do? If this ship belongs to humanity, what will humanity demand of us? Fear turned into endless debate. Some empires prepared treaties. Others built their own weapons in secret. But no matter how much they planned, the truth was simple. The Colossus stood alone, and no one could match it. Inside the Colossus, silence filled the command halls. No cheering, no boasting. The humans knew victory was not glory. It was survival, the captain said to his officers. The galaxy sees our strength, but they must also see our restraint, or else every star will burn against us. Yet restraint was not what the galaxy remembered. What they remembered was fire. What they remembered was terror, the floating terror. That was the name carried across the stars now. Not Colossus, not flagship. The floating terror, a monster too vast to fight, too calm to predict, too powerful to escape. Merchants whispered of it in spaceports. Smugglers sold stories of its weapons. Children on alien worlds drew pictures of it in the dust. Some prayed for its mercy, others cursed its existence, but all felt the same chill. If the Colossus chose to come, nothing could stop it. The images of battle spread like wildfire. Aliens saw beams that cut through cruisers as if they were paper. They saw drones swept aside like insects. They saw smaller human escorts fighting with deadly precision. But above all, they saw the Colossus itself, unmoving, unbroken, as if the galaxy's weapons were nothing but toys. And so the legend grew darker. It was no longer a rumor, it was no longer a test. It was a truth carved in fire and wreckage. The floating terror was real, but even legends can be misunderstood. The humans inside the Colossus did not see themselves as gods. They did not see themselves as conquerors. They saw themselves as survivors. Every plate of armor, every cannon, every mile of steel was built with one memory in mind. The memory of weakness, the memory of being prey. And though the galaxy saw only terror, the Colossus was to humanity a shield. Still, the galaxy did not listen to human hearts. They only saw human hands holding a weapon larger than anything they could dream of, and fear twisted every mind. Fear that one day the Colossus would not stop. Fear that one day humanity would not show restraint. In one far empire, leaders shouted in anger. They demanded retaliation. They called humanity liars. But their own people trembled at the thought of facing the floating terror again. Another empire bowed in quiet respect, they said. Let us not awaken the storm. Let us speak, for if they wish to destroy, we would already be dust. Between these extremes, the galaxy stood divided. Some prepared for alliance, others sharpened for war, but in both paths, the Colossus was at the center. The ship had become the heartbeat of the stars. Every move it made carried weight. Every silence carried meaning, and the humans knew this. That was why the Colossus did not chase fleets. That was why it did not fire unless fired upon. It was not weakness, it was design. Because the greatest terror is not rage, the greatest terror is patience. One alien captain who had survived the test said it best. He whispered in a council hall, I saw it with my own eyes. The Colossus does not fight like us. It fights like time itself, slow, steady, inevitable, and nothing we do can change its path across the galaxy. That whisper spread, and it grew into belief. The floating terror was not just a weapon. It was destiny. On Earth, leaders listened to all this fear. Some felt pride, others felt unease, but all agreed. The galaxy would never see humanity as weak again. The Colossus had made sure of that. In the deep void, the Colossus drifted once more. Engines burning like silent suns, weapons quiet, shields steady. It did not boast, it did not roar, but still, its presence shook worlds still. Its shadow weighed on empires. The floating terror was unleashed, not by destruction alone, but by what it represented. A human promise to never bow again, a warning to all who might try. The galaxy would never forget the sight, never forget the name, and never forget the truth. That humanity once mocked, once hunted, now sailed the stars as masters of their own fate. And all who lived under starlight would have to decide, would they face the floating terror as enemies, or accept it as the shield of a new power rising? The Colossus waited for their answer, silent, patient. The storm at the center of the galaxy's fear, humanity's message. The galaxy now lived in the shadow of the Colossus. The floating terror, the mountain of steel. Every world whispered its name. Every leader dreamed of it in their sleep. For some it was a nightmare. For others it was a shield of hope. But fear alone could not hold forever. Questions burned brighter than stars. What did humanity truly want? Would they demand tribute, demand submission, demand loyalty? Or would they reveal a darker hunger, the hunger to conquer? At last humanity spoke, not in secret, not through envoys, but in a message sent to the whole galaxy, a signal carried on every wave, broadcast from the Colossus itself, its voice echoing across systems into every council, every station, every listening ear. The message began with silence, a pause long enough to make hearts race. Then came the voice, strong, calm, unmistakably human. This is humanity, it said. Builders of the Colossus, Sailors of the Black Seas, children of Earth, we know the galaxy fears us. We know you fear our ship, but you must understand why it exists. You must understand why we built the Colossus. The voice carried weight, not arrogance, not cruelty, but the kind of strength forged by suffering. Once humanity was prey. We were mocked, enslaved, broken, our worlds were taken. Our people silenced, we begged for mercy, and the stars gave us none. We learned the galaxy is not kind. It is not safe, it is not fair, and so we swore we would never bow again. The voice grew sharper. We built the Colossus not for conquest, but for survival. We built it because the galaxy respects only power, and we will never be weak again. We will never be prey again. Across alien worlds, crowds listened, some hissed in anger, others lowered their heads in shame, because many remembered how they had once treated humans. And now the prey had become something far greater. The human message continued. We do not seek your worlds, we do not seek your thrones. But if you bring war to us, if you test us again, we will answer, and our answer will be final. The voice softened then. As much as you fear us, know this. The Colossus is also our shield. It is the wall between us and extinction. It is the promise that our children will live free. Not slaves, not shadows, but free. If you seek peace, you will find it in us. If you seek alliance, you will find a hand open. But if you seek to chain us, you will find only the Colossus. When the message ended, silence ruled the stars again. But it was not the silence of ignorance, it was the silence of thought. The silence of empires wrestling with fear and respect. In one council hall, an alien elder spoke softly. They do not speak like conquerors, they speak like survivors. And survivors will fight until the end. Perhaps peace is wiser than pride. But in another hall, a warlord snarled, "Do not be fooled, they speak sweet words. But behind those words lies a weapon that can erase fleets if we bend to fear. Then we are already conquered." The galaxy split in two. Some chose to believe the message. Others chose to doubt, but none could ignore it. For the Colossus was real, and the Colossus carried truth, even if that truth was wrapped in terror. Back on Earth, inside the command halls, the leaders of humanity studied the alien reactions. Some cheered that fear would protect them. Others warned that fear alone could also spark war. But all agreed on one thing. The message had been necessary. The galaxy had to hear their story. The galaxy had to know their pain. Inside the Colossus itself, crew members stood in quiet pride. They were not rulers, they were guardians. Every one of them carried the same memory, the memory of humanity's chains. And every one of them swore the same oath. Never again. The Colossus drifted onward. Not chasing, not conquering, but watching. It had become more than steel. More than weapons, it was humanity's voice carved into the void. It was their message made flesh, and across the stars, that message could not be erased. Every empire now knew the truth. Humanity had survived the cruelty of the galaxy, and in their survival, they had built something unforgettable, something undeniable, something unbreakable. The floating terror was not just a monster of war. It was a promise written in steel and fire, that humanity would never be weak again. And that promise would echo forever among the stars. The legend of the Colossus. The galaxy had heard humanity's voice. The message carried across stars, into halls of power, into ships adrift, into colonies on cold moons. Some called it arrogance, some called it defiance, but none could deny its weight. The Colossus had spoken without firing. It had declared itself not a sword, but a shield, not a conqueror, but a survivor. Yet the galaxy still trembled, because words may calm, but fear does not vanish. And the Colossus was still the floating terror. Over time, stories grew around it, stories that spread faster than light in market stalls. Travelers told of a ship so large it blocked suns in spaceports. Smugglers swore they saw it pass through asteroid fields without slowing. On distant worlds, children played games, pretending to be human captains of the Colossus, commanding fleets with only their voice. The ship became more than steel, it became a legend. Some said it could move faster than thought. Others claimed it carried weapons that could crack a planet in half. One tale even spoke of a single cannon hidden inside, so powerful it could erase a star itself. Lies, half-truths, exaggerations, but in legends, truth did not matter. Only belief did. And the galaxy believed, for those who feared. The Colossus was a nightmare, for those who hoped. It was a guardian, but for everyone, it was a shadow that could not be ignored in secret. Some empires tried to build their own giants. They poured steel into space, they drained planets for fuel, but none succeeded, their ships fell apart. Their designs failed because what humanity had built was not just a machine, it was will. It was memory turned into metal, and no blueprint could copy that. Inside the Colossus, humans continued their watch. Days turned into months, the ship crossed systems, not as invader but as warning. Wherever it passed, silence followed. No pirate dared attack, no empire dared block its path. The Colossus carried peace, but peace wrapped in the iron hand of fear. One alien historian wrote in his scrolls, "Once the galaxy laughed at humanity, now the galaxy whispers their name." And one ship has changed everything. One ship has reshaped the stars. But legends are never gentle. Legends always demand choices. Some leaders bowed and sought alliance. Others sharpened their swords in the dark, knowing that one day, perhaps, they would test humanity again. Perhaps they would try to break the legend. Yet the Colossus itself remained calm. It did not chase wars, it did not boast of power. It only waited, silent, patient, drifting like a storm cloud, until someone was foolish enough to summon the lightning. On Earth, people looked up at their skies. They knew the Colossus was out there, watching, protecting, warning. It had become more than a ship to them, too. It was their pride, their symbol, their promise. For the first time in history, humanity was not the weakest, not the prey, but the power the galaxy could not bend, and so the legend deepened. Aliens who never saw the Colossus swore they felt its shadow. Armies that never faced it swore they heard its engines in their dreams. Even the bravest captains, when asked what they feared most, would whisper, "The floating terror." In the end, the Colossus became two things at once: a terror to those who sought to chain humanity, a shield to those who wished to stand beside them. It was both monster and guardian, both curse and blessing. And perhaps that was its greatest strength, because no one could decide which was true, and in that uncertainty, the legend grew stronger. Years later, when scholars wrote of the age of the Colossus, they did not write of battles alone. They wrote of silence, they wrote of fear, they wrote of respect, and they wrote of the moment the galaxy changed. The moment one ship turned prey into predator, the moment humanity took its place among the stars, and so the Colossus drifted still, engines glowing like the slow heartbeat of a giant, a shadow in the dark, a story whispered from world to world. Unstoppable, unforgettable, unchallenged, the floating terror, the steel god, the legend of humanity. It was not just a ship anymore. It was a promise carved in fire and metal, a promise that echoed in every corner of the galaxy, a promise that said one simple truth: humanity will never bow again.